Reverend Dr. L. Ronald Durham. This weekly program opens the phone lines for you to call in live and share your questions or comments. On this program, we discuss the latest news and opinions of things that may affect the lives of those here in Daytona Beach and the nation. So join Dr. Durham for today's program.
The following show is a sponsor of Joy 106.3. Joy 106.3 is parent company Rima Broadcasting Inc. Its owners and associates take no responsibility for the opinions or statement made by the talk show hosts, callers, or their guests. Statements or show topics are not necessarily the beliefs of this radio station.
Good afternoon, beloved, and welcome to this edition of Let's Chat America. I am your radio host, the Reverend Dr. L. Ronald Durham. My lovely co-host, Maureen, a.k.a. Mo, is on assignment today and is not with us in the studio. But Tyler is here with me. Together, we are going to make this program fantastic. It is 1 minute past the hour of 12 noon, and you are tuned in to the number one broadcast every Thursday and every Friday right here on Joy 106.3 FM. Wherever you are, we hope you're enjoying this spectacular day. We're going to get, I think, into the lower 80s today, which is great weather for us here in Florida. For those of you up north, we're sorry, but, you know, what can I say? Hopefully you're not too chilled up there, but we're enjoying this great weather here in the Sunshine State. We've got a great set of items to share with you today, and I hope you will sit back, enjoy the program. Those of you coming in on Facebook, thank you for viewing us as well as hearing us. You can put a comment or a question there. Tyler will get that to us and get that to me, and we will try to get that answered if it is a question. For those of you who are listening on other devices, thank you so much. Whatever you're listening on, we're delighted that you are tuned in. We're watching the big screen TV here in the studio. If anything breaks of interest across the country, we will get that information to you as well. Of course, the big news is the suspect in the D.C. pipe bomb case. It looks like he is going to make his first appearance this afternoon. The FBI did a great job in finding out who that individual was from images that they saw on cameras in various locations, and they didn't give up the case. They stayed on it, and this individual, if the suspect, if it is the right person, will be going to trial, and we won't know what will happen until after the trial is over, but it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on this. It's happening it happened in Woodbridge, Virginia on yesterday, and it broke across the country. So we'll see what happens. He's been identified as being named Brian Cole Jr., and he is the D.C. pipe bomb suspect. We'll keep our eye on that because that is going to be some case. Well, we're going to get started today with the Supreme Court as the first item on our agenda. And believe it or not, the Supreme Court has struck once again. They are reviving the pro-Republican Texas voting map. And this is as reported by Reuters. And this is fresh breaking news. Just happened last night. The U.S. Supreme Court revived on yesterday, a redrawn, Texas was told by Donald Trump that he needed 5 additional seats in the state of Texas. And so, of course, when he said jump, they said how high? He said 5 new seats. And they redrew the Texas electoral map designed to add more Republicans to the U.S. House of Representatives, boosting Trump's quest for his party to keep control of Congress in the 2026 midterm elections. The justices granted a request by Texas officials to lift a lower court ruling. Now, this ruling from the lower court had blocked the state from using the Trump-backed map, which could flip as many as 5, as we mentioned, currently Democratic-held U.S. House seats flip those from Democratic seats to Republican seats. The lower court concluded that the map likely, and more than likely, was racially discriminatory, and that is in violation of the United States constitutional protections. The court, which has as you know, the Supreme Court is stacked with Trump loyalists at a 6-3 conservative majority. They issued this ruling in an unsigned order. Of course, the three liberal judges, each one of them dissented on this decision. Republicans currently hold, as you know, a slim majority in the House of Representatives and a slim majority in the Senate. So both Congress areas, House and Senate, are in their hands. Ceding control of either of the House or the Senate to the Democrats in November of 2026 would endanger Trump's legislative agenda and open the door to Democratic-led congressional investigations targeting the president and probably many others. It's a delicate federal-state kind of balance going on. It's like a tightrope act, a balancing act. The Supreme Court said in a brief opinion explaining the decision, here's what they said, quote, "The district court improperly inserted itself into an active primary campaign, causing much confusion and upsetting the delicate federal-state balance in elections," end quote. Well, the court, in its order, acknowledged the political aims of Texas to benefit, they acknowledged it, to benefit the Republican Party, and also said the lower court mistakenly did not fault the new map's challengers for not themselves producing a, quote, "viable alternative map that met the state's avowedly partisan goals," end quote, whatever that means. The Supreme Court's ruling comes amid a nationwide battle that's going on across the country in Republican-governed and Democratic-led states involving the redrawing of electoral maps to change the population composition of congressional districts for partisan advantage. Now, the Democrats are trying to catch up. The state of California had a special election where the only thing on the ballot was whether or not California would now adjust and redraw their maps in retaliation to what Texas is doing with the 5 seats that Trump literally ordered the state to give him. Justice Samuel Alito on November 21st temporarily paused the lower court's ruling as the Supreme Court weighed how to proceed with this particular case. Redrawing the boundaries of electoral districts in a state is a process called, and we all know what it is here in Florida, it's called redistricting. There have been legal fights at the Supreme Court level for decades over the practice of gerrymandering, which is the redrawing of district boundaries in order to marginalize a certain set of voters and increase the influence of others. The Supreme Court, in a 2019 ruling, did declare that gerrymandering for partisan reasons, which is to boost the electoral chances of one's own party and weaken one's political opponent, cannot be challenged in federal courts. But gerrymandering driven primarily by race remains unlawful under the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment, which guarantees equal protection under the law, and the 15th Amendment, which is the prohibition on racial discrimination in voting. So to kind of make that real simple, what the Supreme Court said is, well, you can change the maps and gerrymander those maps as long as you're not impacting race as the primary reason for why you're doing it. If you're doing it just to give one party an advantage over the other, okay, fine. But you can't do it in order to diminish the voting ability or voting power of minorities and those who may not have the same access. Many Texas Republican lawmakers have said the new map was devised in response to Trump's request to redraw, as we mentioned, electoral maps for a partisan advantage in the upcoming House race. But the El Paso-based court ruled 2-1 back on November the 18th that the map likely amounted to an unlawful racial gerrymandering, siding with civil rights groups that sued to block the new map. Each of the 50 U.S. states is represented in Congress by 2 U.S. senators, with representation in the 435-seat House of Representatives based on the population of each state. California, which is the most populous state, has the most House members, which is 52, while the state of Texas is second with the second highest number of representatives, which is 38. Republicans currently hold 25 of 38 U.S. House seats in Texas. Let me repeat that. Republicans currently hold 25 of the 38 U.S. House of Representatives seats in Texas. So there's racial considerations that are going on in this new Supreme Court decision. The Texas electoral map, which is at the center of this dispute, was passed by the Republican-led Texas legislature and then signed into law by Republican Governor Greg Abbott back in August. U.S. District Judge Jeffrey Brown, who authored the lower court ruling, wrote and said, quote, "What ultimately spurred and Texas to redraw its maps was a letter from the U.S. Justice Department urging state officials to, quote, inject racial considerations into what Texas insists was a race-blind process," end quote. Brown, who is believe it or not, a Trump judicial appointee, wrote that the Justice Department's analysis was based on the, quote, legally incorrect assertion that the racial composition of 4 Texas congressional districts in the state's previous electoral maps was unconstitutional and that they must be redrawn. They went on to say, had the Trump administration sent Texas a letter urging the state to redraw its congressional maps to improve the performance of Republican candidates, the plaintiffs' groups would then face a much greater burden to show that race rather than partisanship was the driving force behind the 2025 map, end quote. That was written by Justice Brown. The judge wrote, quote, "But nothing in the DOJ, Department of Justice letter, is couched in terms of partisan politics. The letter instead commands Texas to change 4 districts for one reason and one reason alone: the racial demographics of the voters who live there," end quote, which is in violation of the 14th and 15th Amendment. The NAACP civil rights group noted in a statement after the ruling that, quote, "The state of Texas is only 40% white, but white voters," listen to this, "the state of Texas is only 40% white, but white voters control over 73% of the state's congressional seats," end quote. The court directed that the state's previous electoral map, approved by the Republican-led legislature in 2021, is to be used in the 2026 elections. Democratic-governed California, as we mentioned, reacted to the Texas redistricting by initiating their own effort targeting 5 Republican-held districts in the state. California voters in November overwhelmingly, and when I say overwhelmingly, it was overwhelmingly, they approved a new map benefiting the Democratic Party. The Trump administration has sued California to try to stop its new congressional map from taking effect. Now, they'll sue California to stop California's map from taking effect, But Texas, no problem. Go right ahead. Gerrymander it. Do whatever you want to do. We're not going to step in and say a word. Redistricting generally occurs to reflect population changes as measured by the national census conducted every 10 years. Though this year's redistricting has been motivated by securing partisan advantage, has nothing to do with the census. The Supreme Court during its current term already has heard arguments in another major case involving race and redistricting. The conservative justices, in a case involving a map in the U.S. House District in Louisiana, signaled they are probably willing to undercut another key section of the Voting Rights Act, which was a landmark decision in 1965 and federal law enacted by Congress to prevent racial discrimination in voting. It appears the Supreme Court is signaling that they are going to go along with this suit in Louisiana, further undermining and undercutting voting rights here in the United States, literally gutting the 1965 Voting Rights Act. This is Let's Chat America. We're broadcasting live from the studios of Joy 106.3 FM. If you're just tuning in, we are delighted to have you with us. It is 16 minutes past the hour of 12 noon, and you're listening to the number one broadcast every Thursday and Friday right here out of the world's most famous beach. My co-host is on assignment today, Mo. So it's just Tyler and I here in the studio bringing you the news and information for this great Friday afternoon. So if you'd like to give us a call, tell us what you think about the Supreme Court just literally tearing up the lower court's decision and allowing the state of Texas to move forward with the gerrymandered 5 districts, flipping those districts and giving Donald Trump 5 more seats in the House of Representatives. Now, all of this is contingent upon, during the election, those 5 seats actually being Republicans who win those elections. And we have seen in the last election cycle that Democrats have made some tremendous gains, and all signs are pointing towards there being a flip of at least the House of Representatives in 2026, which would make Hakeem Jeffries the Speaker of the House. And with that Pandora's box looming over the head of the Trump administration, they are pulling out all the stops that they can to ensure that they keep the majority in both the House and the Senate. We'll have to see what happens. November 2026 is not that far away. We are only a few days from the month of January, which will usher in the new year, and the countdown will begin for what I think will be one of the most consequential elections, at least in the last 50 years. Tell us what you think. Pick up the phone, give us a call at 386-868-3411. That's 386-868-3411. The U.S. is ending temporary protected status, which is known as TPS. The U.S. is ending temporary protected status for Haitians, telling hundreds of thousands of Haitians to leave by the month of February. This is as reported by Florida Politics. Nearly a third of America's 1.3 million temporary protected status holders, nearly a third of them live right here in the state of Florida. The Department of Homeland Security has announced that they are formally terminating temporary protected status, TPS, for Haitian nationalists, ordering hundreds of thousands of people who are now legally living and working in the United States to prepare to leave by February of next year. TPS for Haiti will end on February the 3rd, 2026. The DHS has instructed beneficiaries to depart if they cannot secure another lawful basis to remain statewide. Now, they're already here lawfully, but they're taking away the status that these Haitians were given to come to the United States in the first place, and now telling them, we're going to take away that status, but if you can find another lawful way to stay here, that's the only way you can stay. The announcement said, quote, after consulting with interagency partners, Secretary Christy Nome concluded that Haiti no longer meets the statutory requirements for TPS. This decision, it went on to say, was based on a review conducted by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, input from relevant U.S. government agencies, and an analysis indicating that allowing Haitian nationals to remain temporarily in the United States is inconsistent with U.S. national interests, end quote. Now, it does not take a rocket scientist to figure out why they have targeted Haitians. They have targeted Haitians, in my opinion, because Haitians are people of color. And this administration consistently seems to be targeting anyone that does not look like Donald J. Trump. As of March 31st, there were 330,735 Haitian nationals who received TPS approval to live here in the United States, which is the second most of any country, following the country of Venezuela. And that's according to a Congressional Research Service report. Nearly a third of America's 1.3 million TPS holders live in the state of Florida. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, is directing Haitians to report self-departures using the CBP Home mobile app, which is a program marked as, quote, a secure and convenient, end quote, self-deportation process that includes a free plane ticket and $1,000 exit bonus and the promise of possible future eligibility for legal status. Can you imagine that? They're telling them to self-deport. We're going to give you a free plane ticket. We're going to give you an exit bonus. If you leave the country, we're going to pay you $1,000 to leave. But we're going to give you a promise that possibly in the future, you might be eligible once again for legal status. You already got it, but we're taking it. We're going to give you a plane ticket, $1,000, and maybe the possibility that one day, who knows, you'll be able to come back. The announcement is the latest escalation in President Trump's aggressive rollback of humanitarian protections and work authorization programs. Since retaking office in January 2025, the administration has moved with lightning speed to terminate TPS or humanitarian parole for nationals from Haiti, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Syria, Somalia, Burma, Cameroon, Afghanistan, and others, while encouraging people losing status to self-deport using CBP Home. So those countries that I mentioned, let me mention them again. Haiti, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Syria, Somalia, Burma, Cameroon, Afghanistan. What do you think all of those countries have in common? they all have in common the fact that they are brown-skinned or black people. The announcement issued Wednesday comes as Haiti faces dire humanitarian and security crisis going on in that country. Immigrant rights advocates and legal experts say that the Department of Homeland Security is ignoring the catastrophic conditions in Haiti. The Miami Herald reports that 5.7 million Haitians, which is more than half the population, face acute hunger. Some 1.4 million are internally displaced, and as many as 1 in 4 Haitians of the island nation's 12 million people live in gang-controlled neighborhoods. And what the Trump administration is saying is, we want you to go back to all that turmoil that you wanted to escape from and came here to find some level of peace and security. We're stripping that from you and sending you back into that chaos. Criminal organizations now control roughly 90% of Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and all major roads in and out of the capital are under their control, while kidnapping, rapes, and killings number in the thousands this year. Hurricane Melissa recently increased the shortages, killing dozens and severely severing already fragile supply routes. The termination also follows a surge in xenophobic rhetoric targeting Haitians during last year's presidential campaign, when Trump, Vice President Vance, falsely claimed Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, if you remember this, remember that? Said they were eating cats and dogs, which has been a debunked conspiracy theory amplified at the time by numerous other Republicans and condemned by many elected leaders in the Haitian American community. The false claims sparked multiple bomb threats that shut down government offices, hospitals, and schools, prompting widespread outrage and reaction by the woman who had initially spread the rumor on local social media. According to an analysis of public and U.S. Census data by the Libertarian Cato Institute think tank, immigrants from Haiti have an incarceration rate 48% lower than U.S.-born Americans. Let me repeat that. According to analysis of public and U.S. Census data by the Libertarian Cato Institute think tank, immigrants from Haiti have an incarceration rate 48% lower than U.S.-born Americans. Haiti first received TPS after the catastrophic 2010 earthquake, which killed hundreds of thousands of Haitians and left more than 1 million Haitians homeless. The country has since faced repeated natural disasters, another major earthquake in 2021, and cascading political upheaval culminating in the 2021 assassination of President Jovenel Moïse. Gangs filled the power vacuum, seizing police stations, ports, and fuel terminals while pushing families into makeshift shelters in churches, schools, and stadiums. And in July, the United States said Haiti's gangs had, quote, near total control, end quote, of the capital city of Port-au-Prince. Legal battles have slowed but not stopped the administration's push to end TPS for Haiti, which began 1 month into Trump's second term. Almost immediately into his second term, he began targeting the nation of Haiti. In July, U.S. District Court Judge Brian Cogan in New York blocked a Department of Homeland Security attempt to move up the TPS end date by 5 months, ruling the government violated notice requirements. And then in September, U.S. District Judge Edward Chin in San Francisco halted terminations for more than 1 million Haitian and Venezuelan TPS holders, calling the actions by DHS arbitrary and capricious. The U.S. Supreme Court, however, has granted, of course they have, the U.S. Supreme Court has granted multiple emergency requests, allowing DHS to continue parts of its TPS rollback. So, once again, the Supreme Court steps in to allow the Trump administration to target and deport people who, in their opinion, they don't think belongs here. It is just a sad, sad state of affairs. And the Supreme Court, sadly, is going to be tipped in the favor that it's tipped in for years to come. One of the masterpieces of Trump's first and second term has been to ensure that the U.S. Supreme Court would be in favor of just about everything that he wants. And sadly, the people who suffer from those decisions are people who don't look like them. In many cases, in several cases. And these people are going to be in those seats for quite some time. So it will be a generation or two before we see, hopefully, a more balanced Supreme Court with more humanitarian individuals sitting on that court who realize that this nation was founded as a safe harbor for immigrants from all over the world to come and achieve, through hard work, perseverance, to achieve the American dream of freedom, of safety, of having families that could prosper and grow and feel safe. And that American dream is being chipped away daily. Pieces of that dream are literally being chipped away and stripped so that people are feeling more and more vulnerable, feeling more and more uncomfortable, feeling more and more of whether this is a place that can provide the kinds of safe havens that they thought they would have being in the United States of America. Give us a call. Tell us what you think. It's 33 minutes past the hour of 12 noon. The number to call is 386-868-3411. That's 386-868-3411. Yesterday we had two lovely ladies who were on the program from Bethune-Cookman University, and they're having an event this weekend called the Tour of Tables, which is a fundraising event to raise funds for Bethune-Cookman University. My university received my Doctor of Divinity from Bethune-Cookman University. I sat on the Board of Trustees as a trustee for that university. And so my heart, and my wife and I have been making a monthly contribution to the school for years. My heart is, there with that institution because aiding historically black colleges and universities is something that, particularly if you attended one, and graduated from one, you should be willing to give back. Well, and I'm saying all of this to get to my next segment, which involves the state of Florida and the lottery. Maybe you buy lottery tickets, and if you do, the Florida lottery is saying that they have given millions of dollars in aid to historically black colleges and universities, all while leaders like DeSantis, crack down on teaching black history in the state of Florida. This is as reported by Newsweek. In 2022, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed what he called the, quote, Stop Woke Act. In 2022, redistricting schools and businesses from restricting schools and businesses from promoting certain concepts about race, gender, racism, social privilege, and a whole lot more. During halftime at the Florida Classic between Florida A&M University and Bethune-Cookman University, representatives from the Florida Lottery presented the schools with an on-field check presentation to highlight the lottery's support of higher education throughout the Sunshine State. Representatives from the state lottery took to the field to highlight how the lottery has impacted students attending both institutions. Lottery leaders said that the agency has contributed more than $76 million to FAMU and to BCU combined, that's $76 million combined, through what is called the Bright Future Scholarship Program, and that's according to WFTV. Florida Lottery Secretary John F. Davis said, quote, "We're honored to stand alongside institutions like FAMU and BCU, and we remain proud to contribute to education across the entire state of Florida," end quote. Davis is currently the secretary of the Florida Lottery and the incoming athletic director for FAMU. And that's according to the Tallahassee Democrat. He'll start his new role on January the 5th. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis appointed Davis in October of 2020. As he prepares for his new role at FAMU, the community has criticized the move. He is the latest executive from the DeSantis administration to lead FAMU. In May of 2025, Marva Johnson was selected as the new president of FAMU. The decision generated controversy due to her political ties with Governor DeSantis, who is bent on redistricting, or I should say on reducing DEI programs and scaling back the teaching of black history throughout the state. DeSantis signed the, quote, Stop Woke Act in 2022, restricting schools and businesses from promoting certain concepts about race, gender, racism, social privilege, and more. So, the Bright Futures Scholarship Program, funded by the state of Florida, provides scholarships based on high school academic achievement for post-secondary education here in Florida. The program offers different award levels, each with its own eligibility criteria and each with its own award amounts. The Florida Academic Scholars Award covers 100% of tuitions and fees, and the Florida Medallion Scholarship awards 75%. In addition to GPA requirements, high school seniors must submit their test scores and complete a community service work hour requirement. A statement on the program's website reads, quote, "Together with the Florida Department of Education, the Florida Lottery has helped over 1 million scholars and counting receive a post-secondary education through the Bright Futures Scholarship Program," end quote. When officials presented the check during the Florida Classic, state lottery leaders said they have donated, as we said earlier, over $76 million to universities statewide so far this year. So we wanted to share that with you because on the one hand, Bright Scholars program is much needed. Certainly 100% or 75% of tuition and fees being covered by the Florida Lottery is welcomed and appreciated by the students who are fortunate enough to benefit from that program. It's just hard for me to put myself around, my head around, on one hand, helping students to achieve college educations, and then the administration, on the other hand, saying that diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that they don't want to see as part of campus life. Just oxymoronic to me that the two of those things are sitting side by side next to each other in 2025. You know, you would almost think this was 1875. It's just to me strange, and I'm hoping at some point the governor is termed out, can't run again for re-election, and I'm hoping, I'm praying that we get whoever the new governor is, a person with a heart for the people in a way that really demonstrates that we are all here created equal and should be afforded the ability to learn about history truthfully rather than a watered down, whitewashed, sanitized history that removes. Yeah, there were some things about the history of the state of Florida, the history of the United States in general, that are not, they're horrible things that have been done historically in this country. And you may not want to admit that, you may not want to acknowledge that, but you cannot undo what has been done. And the only way that we move forward with, in my opinion, with resolve and strength not to repeat those things is to know what those things were and to dedicate ourselves to never going back to those kinds of things that made this country, certainly in my opinion, made this country less desirable than it could and should have been at that time. 43 minutes past the hour of 12 noon. If you'd like to give us a call, you still can. You got a few minutes to pick up the phone. The number to dial is 386-868-3411. That's 386-868-3411. Those of you on Facebook, if you want to put a question there, you can. Tyler is looking at that page right now as I speak. And if you have a question, you can put it on the page. She'll get that to me, and we'll try to get it answered. Democratic lawmakers can't access alligator Alcatraz, DeSantis says. Governor Ron DeSantis' administration has fired back at a lawsuit that was filed by Democratic lawmakers who were seeking access to the controversial immigrant detention center down in the Everglades, saying that they don't have a legal right to enter the facility, quote, at their pleasure, end quote. 5 lawmakers filed this lawsuit in July after they made an unannounced visit to this facility, which has been dubbed Alligator Alcatraz, but were denied access. They contended the denial was unconstitutional and violated state laws allowing access by legislators to correctional institutions. But attorneys for DeSantis and State Division of Emergency Management Director Kevin Guthrie, in a response filed last week in Leon County Circuit Court, said that the laws and that the Democrats, quote, invoked do not entitle them as individual legislators to enter Alligator Alcatraz at their pleasure, end quote. In part, the response said the access laws do not apply to the immigrant detention facility. The response said, quote, the facility is not a state correctional institution because it is not a prison or other correctional facility, end quote. Partially quoting one law, and then adding, quote, prisons and correctional facilities describe facilities that are part of the criminal justice system. Instead, Alligator Alcatraz is a short-term civil detention facility in which illegal aliens are held under the authority of the federal government and processed for deportation, end quote. Senator Shervin Jones, State Senator Shervin Jones, Democrat from Miami Gardens, Senator Carlos Guillermo Smith, Democrat from Orlando, Representative Anna Escamani, Democrat also from Orlando, Representative Angie Nixon, Democrat from Jacksonville, and Representative Michelle Rayner, Democrat from St. Petersburg, went to that center, Alligator Alcatraz, on July 3rd to, quote, inspect the state detention facility, evaluate the use of taxpayer funds, and assess safety pursuant to Florida statutory guidelines, end quote. And that's what the lawsuit said. The lawsuit also said, quote, the petitioners, meaning the lawmakers, attempted to arrive unannounced so that they could observe the unadulterated conditions of the facility. The unannounced inspection of the facility falls squarely within the petitioner's purview and oversight duties as state officers and members of the Florida legislature, end quote. The lawsuit was filed at the Florida Supreme Court on July 10th, seeking what is known as, quote, a writ of quo warranto, end quote, directing DeSantis and Guthrie to allow lawmakers unannounced access to the facility. The Supreme Court, without offering an opinion about the lawmakers' arguments, sent the case to the Circuit Court. And amid the controversy, state lawmakers and members of Congress were allowed to visit the facility, though Democrats said the visit was tightly controlled and left unanswered questions. In addition to citing laws about legislators having access to correctional facilities, the lawsuit also raised constitutional separations of powers arguments. The lawsuit added, quote, the denial of the petitioners access to the Alligator Alcatraz detention facility was an unconstitutional executive overreach because it prevented the duly elected members of the Florida legislature from exercising their powers. The petitioners' denial of entry and access restricted the legislature's independence as a co-equal branch of government. But in response, that's end quote. But in the response last week, the DeSantis administration attorneys said the state constitution gives the legislature oversight authority and a law authorizes legislative committees to carry out investigations. But the administration's attorneys said individual lawmakers don't have such powers. The response said, quote, far from the governor or FDEM, which is the Division of Emergency Management, usurping the authority of another branch of government, it is petitioners who attempt to usurp the authority of the legislature and its committees by taking matters into their own hands, end quote. The state opened the detention center this summer at the Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport, which had long been used for flight training as DeSantis and other Florida Republican leaders sought to assist President Trump's mass deportation of undocumented immigrants. The facility, which is surrounded by the Everglades and by Big Cypress National Preserve, has also led to separate legal battles in federal court. The case about the legislature's access has been assigned to Leon County Circuit Judge Jonathan Jostrom, I think that's how it's pronounced. And an online docket this past Monday morning, did not show that there are any scheduled hearings upcoming. So we'll see what happens with this lawsuit and whether or not Alligator Alcatraz will be able to have the oversight from the lawmakers who went down to investigate and see just what is going on inside that facility. We'll just have to wait and see whether or not that happens. Well, guess what? Trump's Doge, which Maureen and I have called Doggy, is dead, and we won't miss it, according to the New Republic, or as reported by the New Republic. It was here for, as you know, it was here for a bad time, not a long time ago. The U.S. Department of Government Efficiency, or what is known as Doge or Doggy, has been officially disbanded. The shady department, led by tech billionaire Elon Musk, which laid off scores of workers and gutted parts of the federal government, has faded away into oblivion, and that's according to an executive from Reuters. When Reuters journalists asked about the department, which set out to reduce government spending but fell short of its promises while creating chaos in the federal workforce, the Office of Personnel Management Director Scott Cooper said, quote, "That doesn't exist," end quote. Doggy is no longer a, quote, centralized entity, he added. The Trump administration has been signaling the end of Doge since the summer, and according to the report, and the president generally talking about it in the past tense. Many of Doge's staff have found jobs elsewhere inside the government, like acting Doge Administrator Amy Gleason, who is now an official advisor to RFK Jr. at the Department of Health and Human Services. Doge's legacy is both very stupid and very sad. It decimated the federal workforce, including Social Security personnel at local offices, and made it easier for hackers to access your data. The agency tore apart USAID, which resulted in hundreds of thousands of lives lost globally. And all this for projected savings, numbers that grew smaller and less ambitious every time Musk mentioned them. While Doge may fade away into a fever dream of Trump's first 100 days, its effects and the suffering it inflicted will be felt for a long time. So it looks like Doge is gone, and we'll see what some of these repercussions will be, and I think they will last for a long, long time. We got to go, everybody. We do appreciate you being with us for the hour. We hope that you enjoy the rest of this beautiful day if you're here in Florida. As I said, we're going to be in the lower 80s today. Just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous weather. We hope that you enjoyed the broadcast. Lord willing, we'll see you right back here next time, same place. Joy 106.3 FM from Tyler and myself. We love you. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.